This topic is biological importance of calcium. Myself, Dr. Digna Varghese. Calcium. Calcium is a chemical element that we know. The symbol of calcium is Ca and its atomic number is 20. It's an alkaline earth metal. It is the fifth most abundant element in Earth's crust. The most common calcium compound on Earth is calcium carbonate, found in limestone and fossilized remnants of early sea life. Gypsum, anhydrite, fluorite, and apatite are also sources of calcium. The name derives from calcium is from the Latin word calx, which means lime, which was obtained from heating limestone. Critical role of calcium. Calcium plays a vital role in the anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry of organisms' cells. Calcium play in many fundamental cellular processes. Bone serves as an important storage point for calcium as it contains 99% of the total body calcium. The skeleton acts as a major mineral storage site for the element calcium and it releases calcium 2 plus ions into the bloodstream under controlled conditions. Circulating calcium is either in the free ionized form or bound to blood proteins such as serum albumin. Calcium plays an important role in delivering the nutrients to the cell. Calcium exerts significant effects on the structural and functional properties of biomembranes. Calcium also carries charge across biological membranes of excitable cells. Do you know what is an excitable cell? Excitable cells has some ability of it's an ability of some cells to be electrically excited, resulting in the generation of action potentials, such as neurons, muscle cells, and some endocrine cells, such as insulin releasing pancreatic beta cells. These are some examples of excitable cells. Calcium is essential for the functioning of ionic channels by binding to a fixed negative charge on the surface of the cell. So, calcium is very essential for the functioning of ionic channels. Okay. It also helps to optimize the response of receptors to membrane active agents. Ionic channels that we know which are specialized proteins in the plasma membrane that provide a passageway through which charged ions can cross the plasma membrane down their electrochemical gradient. We have already seen an ionic channel or ionic pump in the case of sodium potassium pump. Control of microtubule assembly disassembly by calcium dependent regulated protein. And microtubules are major components of the cytoskeleton. They are found in all eukaryotic cells and they are involved in mitosis, cell motility, intracellular transport, and maintenance of cell shape. Microtubules are composed of alpha and beta tubulin subunits assembled into linear protofilaments. Okay, so calcium control of microtubule assembly disassembly. Calcium stimulating the contractile and motility in somatic cells. A somatic cell or a vegetal cell is any biological cell forming the body of a multicellular organism other than a gamete, a germ cell, gametocyte, or undifferentiated stem cell. Calcium also triggers the increase in motility associated with the sperm egg interactions. Calcium also positively modulates the proliferation of epithelial and mesenchymal cells by regulating DNA synthesis and mitotic activity in concert with other cellular mediators. Mesenchymal cells are the unspecialized cells. Epithelial cells line organs, vessels, and cavities, providing protection to the body. The main difference between the epithelial and mesenchymal cell is their levels of differentiation and function in the body. So these are some important functions of calcium. Here we are also discussing some important functions of calcium. Calcium is crucial for enabling cells to adhere to one another. If calcium deprivation causes cells to uncouple, what is cell adhesion? That is the process by which the cells interact and attach to the neighboring cells through a specialized molecules of the cell surface. So cell adhesion is possible only by the presence of calcium ions. Okay, if its absence causes cells to uncouple. Calcium compromising the cells to communicate with one another, cell communication. Okay, calcium compromising the cells to communicate with one another. That is, cell communication is possible by the presence of calcium. This intracellular communication appears vital for optimizing cellular function by facilitating the exchange of ions and macromolecules through gap junction. That is also known as cell permeability. Okay, the communication is vital for optimizing the cellular function. It is only by facilitating the exchange of ions from one cell to another cell or exchange of macromolecules from one cell to other cells through gap junctions, that is cell permeability. So cell communication and cell permeability, cell adhesion is only possible in the presence of calcium, that is by the associated calcium associated proteins or some other biomolecules. Today, it is widely recognized that calcium ions are central to a complex intracellular messenger system that is mediating a wide range of biological processes: muscle contraction, secretion, glycolysis, and gluconeogenesis, ion transport, and cell division and growth. So many biologically important functions, that is muscle contraction, secretion, glycolysis, cell division, ion transport, growth. These are only possible by the presence of calcium ions. So it is only by the presence of a cell communication, that is a complex intracellular messenger system is associated with the calcium 2 ions. So we can say that calcium is very important for our body for the proper functioning of our cells. We discussed the communication or cell communication associated with calcium ions. So here we are discussing the calcium signaling proteins. That is, calcium ions are suitable for signaling because they exhibit fast ligand exchange and a large flexible coordination geometry. Calcium ions play a crucial role in higher organisms as an intracellular messenger. Fluxes of calcium ion trigger the enzyme action in cells in response to receiving a hormonal or electrical signal from elsewhere in the organism. Calcium is particularly suited for signaling because it has fast ligand exchange rates, intermediate binding constants, and a large flexible coordination sphere. Then only the signals or from one cell to another cell is possible, by which the cell communication is possible. so the proper functioning of the organism occurs. Calcium signaling is the use of calcium ions to communicate and drive the intracellular processes, often as a step in signal transduction. Calcium signaling proteins are small proteins that change their conformation depending on the binding of calcium at one or more sites. They are thus examples of the metal ion activated proteins. Calcium signaling requires special calcium pumps, which are large membrane spanning enzymes that pump calcium 2 plus out of the cytoplasm, either out of the cell altogether or into a calcium storing organelle such as the endoplasmic reticulum or the mitochondria. The energy for calcium pumping comes from ATP hydrolysis. Every muscle movement we make is stimulated by the calcium binding to a protein known as troponin C. The best studied calcium regulatory protein is calmodulin. So, by calcium, cell communication possible, cell permeability, cell adhesion. So, the calcium pumping comes from the ATP. Energy comes from the ATP hydrolysis. So, there are so many important functions, biological role for calcium. The element calcium supports all animals in two main ways. It builds their skeletons and supports their muscles and nerve function. Calcium is the basic mineral in vertebrate teeth and bones and invertebrate shells and carapaces. It is also the crucial trigger for contraction in muscles and it initiates impulses in nerves. Without an adequate supply of calcium, over the long term, your teeth, vision, and brains are damaged, and your bones become brittle. You suffer from osteoporosis. Given all these roles, it is no surprise that humans and other animals need a lot of calcium. Calcium forms about 6% of our body weight, ignoring our water content. Okay. Structural roles of calcium in plants. Calcium ions are an essential component of plant cell walls and cell membranes and are used as cations to balance organic anions in the plant vacuole. The most striking use of calcium ions as a structural element in the algae occurs in the marine coccolithophores, which use calcium 2 plus ion to form the calcium carbonate plates with which they are covered. Calcium is needed to form the pectin in the middle lamella of a newly formed cells. Pectin is a structural acidic heteropolysaccharide contained in the primary and middle lamella and cell walls of terrestrial plants. Calcium is an important to plants as it is to animals. Okay. Calcium is needed to stabilize the permeability of cell membranes. Without calcium, the cell walls are unable to stabilize and hold their contents. Calcium is particularly important in developing fruits. Without calcium, the cell walls are weak and unable to hold the contents of the fruit. Some plants accumulate calcium in their tissues, thus making them more firm. Calcium is stored as calcium oxalate crystals in plastids. The plastid is a membrane-bound organelle found in the cells of plants, algae, and some other eukaryotic organisms. So, in the case of animals and also in the case of plants, calcium plays an important role. Thank you for your attention.